Act 1, Scene 11. Roof of the Hogwarts Express. The wind whistles from all angles, and it's a fierce wind at that.
Okay, now we're on the roof of a train. It's fast, it's scary. This has been great. I feel like I've learned a lot about me. Something about you, but...
As I calculated, we should be approaching a viaduct soon, and then it will be a short hike to St. Oswald's home for old witches and wizards.
The what? The where? Look, I'm excited as you are to be a rebel for the first time in my life. Yay, train roof, fun. But now,
Scorpius sees something he doesn't want to see. The water will be extremely useful backup if our cushioning charm doesn't work.
Albus, the trolley witch.
You want a snack for the journey?
No, Albus, the trolley witch is coming towards us.
No, she can't be. We're on top of the train. Scorpius points Albus in the right direction, and now he can see the trolley witch, who approaches nonchalantly, pushing her trolley.
Anything from the trolley, dears? Pumpkin pasty, chocolate frog, cauldron cake?
Oh.
People don't know much about me. They buy my cauldron cakes, but they never really notice me. I don't remember the last time someone asked my name.
What is your name?
I've forgotten. All I can tell you is that when the Hogwarts Express first came to be, Ottoline Gamble herself offered me this job.
That's 190 years. You've been doing this job for 190 years?
These hands have made over 6 million pumpkin pasties.
Oh.
I've got quite good at them. But what people haven't noticed about my pumpkin pasties is how easily they transform into something else.
She picks up a pumpkin pasty. She throws it like a grenade. It explodes.
And you won't believe what I can do with my chocolate frogs. Never have I let anyone off this train before they reach their destination. Some have tried. Sirius Black and his cronies, Fred and George Weasley. All have failed because this train, it doesn't like people getting off it.
The trolley witch's hands transfigure into very sharp spikes. She smiles.
So please, retake your seats for the remainder of this journey.
You were right, Scorpius. This train is magical.
At this precise moment in time, I take no pleasure in being right.
But I was also right about the viaduct. Remember from before when I mentioned the viaduct? Right, there's water down there. Trying to try a cushioning charm.
Albus, this is a bad idea.
Is it? He has a moment's hesitation and realizes the time for hesitation has passed. Too late now. 3, 2, 1. Moya! He incants as he jumps.
Albus! Albus!
He looks down desperately after his friend. He looks at the approaching trolley witch, her hair wild, her spikes particularly spiky.
Well, fun as you really look, I have to go after my friend.
He pinches his nose and jumps after Albus, incanting as he goes.
Moya!
What in God's name is going on?
Theater, Lenore. Theater.
It's theater! Baby! We're back!
You're now listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.
Welcome back to the Socialist Shelf, part 3 and final part question mark, unless we decide to do one of her adult books on J.K. Rowling, our awful Rowling miniseries. Harry Potter miniseries is kind of coming to a crescendo here, and we have AJ Diddy returning to the show from the worst of all possible worlds to talk about Cursed Child with us. Welcome back to the show, AJ.
Harry Potter.
He will be talking like this the whole time.
Yeah, it really hurts to do that. No, because there's the two versions of Voldemort, right? You have the actually three if you include the Stephen Fry audiobooks, which I don't because he puts on maybe two voices. And we got Jim Dale here in the States, right? And when he does Voldemort, it's like kill the spare, and I'm like that destroys your vocal folds. And then there's Ray Fiennes who just plays him as sort of like a little British dandy, which I think is right. Like I feel like that is very much in line.
I
with
approve.
Voldemort.
It demystifies him a little bit. It makes him a little less. I mean, here's somebody who lays claim to immortality, but like he didn't make it past his 70s. Come on, Dumbledore has 40 years on him.
Yes. 40 years of using those long fingies to get up to God knows what. I am so happy to be back here. I feel like my role on the social shelf is to come back whenever y'all need to talk about theater that is longer than 4 hours long, and exclusively theater that is longer than 4 hours. Although not anymore.
Ever.
Yeah,
that's true. It's been cut down.
Yeah.
So Cursed Child, of course, takes place after Harry Potter. This is after its peak. We kind of talked about last week. But what is this play? AJ, you want to kind of tell people what I mean, Lenore's got some more information on how it came to be and everything. But What is this play? What do you know about it? Why is it interesting? Because when I pitched you coming on for Harry Potter, you were like, I'm feeling the Cursed Child episode.
Yeah, so I was in a play for about 3 years called Puffs, or in 7 increasingly eventful years at a certain school of magic and magic, which is about a certain house at a certain wizarding school, going through all 7 years as the books do, but from the Puffs house perspective. In that universe, it's Braves, Snakes, Puffs, and Smarts are the 4 houses. And while that we were acting in that play, we get news that they're making an 8th Harry Potter story, but it's going to be for the stage. And that's sort of where my brain melted a little bit, because I was like, wait, the movies have been so wildly successful. Why would you transfer to the stage? And I think a large part of that was me not understanding the British's sort of penchant for long theater, right? There's sort of an appetite in Britain for epic 7-hour, 8-hour theater in a way that it's just not really present in America so much. Of course, last time I was on, we talked about Tony Kushner, who is sort of the American master of the long epic theater, but Americans really don't flock to it in the way that the British do. Like they had that Nicholas Nickleby that was like 9 hours long, that was a marathon over several days, or you could like binge it all in one day, and that model just never really transferred over here. So, first of all, we hear that it's a Harry Potter play, and then second, we hear that it's 2 parts and like 5 hours long. And we're just like, how is that going to be feasible? And they completely, it's a huge hit when it opens in London, and they completely reconfigure a theater in New York that was right down the street from where we were doing Puffs. Like we would walk out of our theater, look down, and we'd see the big egg on the top with a little child like curled up inside, and the big wings that they put on the top of the theater. And we were just like, what is happening? Because a little before that, they had published the book. I got it on day one. I read it and went, oh no, in a way that like, maybe y'all have some information on this from like the forums at the time, but like when it started leaking out like what the actual plot of the play was, the fan base reacted quite negatively to it, right?
Yeah. I went back on like Reddit and some other stuff like that. When it first started leaking out, even before, there was the script that was published, there are posts from like 2015, 2016 that are just calling people liars for saying what the actual play is. They're like, bullshit. What are you talking about? The Voldemort didn't fuck Bellatrix. What are you talking?
He did now.
Which admittedly is probably one of the less insane things in the play. Not that it's not insane, but people are just there like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not how time turners work. No, Cedric Diggory wasn't a Nazi. What do you mean? Like, if he had been like slightly inconvenienced at one point in his life, he, things like that. And it turns out not only that is the plot quite insane, but it just feels wrong. The vibes are bad, and it feels like this. There's only a few pieces of media that really like feel like it, but it's a very Rise of Skywalker type like thing that's makes no one happy. That's maybe, but unlike Rise of Skywalker, I'm not even sure if it's trying to. I don't know.
It's funny that you mention Rise of Skywalker because the principal writer for this play, Jack Thorne, was actually tapped at one point to do rewrite work for that film.
Oh my god! No,
He was
no.
now of course he was replaced by J.J. Abrams and one other dude later. But like, can you imagine the world?
And
where
they
that might have
delivered
happened?
perfectly, of course.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I
flawlessly.
would imagine that Jack Thorne's treatment would be to focus on the kid at the end of Last Jedi who like force pulled the broom to himself, because Jack Thorne almost exclusively writes for kids. Like
Hmm.
that's sort of his bread and butter. He also adapted the His Dark Material series, which is my YA series of choice,
Mhm.
and he completely ruined it. And it's fine. It's fine. Like I feel like. You know, I don't think that thing is a thing that can necessarily be adapted to the screen particularly well, because there's just a lot of like biblically accurate angels in it, for example, that they have to fight and kill, and it's just like that's never not going to look goofy. There's like, I think there's like dogs with like chariot legs at one point in that, and it's just like that. How are we going to get those on screen? How is that going to look good on screen? But Jack Thorne is not necessarily a great writer of dialogue. He
Oh
is
no.
he I think he taps into something about like being an awkward, anxious child, because in every interview I've read with him, he seems to like be like one misfortune away from like completely having a mental breakdown. The man is an incredibly anxious fellow, but that's the only like truth I find in his work, is any character who is anxious, which is why Scorpius rules in this play.
Yeah,
Because
I
he's
was
the
gonna
only
say, I
character
think
in the
like my
play.
first note to Lenore was like Scorpius doing everything he can to save this show.
Literally.
The Scorpion King who never was, the once and future Scorpion
The
King.
Rock is here.
God, I'm so glad that made it in.
Lenore, what's your background with this? Because for me, Cursed Child was actually not that long after I got into Harry Potter, because, you know, I got into it late. I mean, it was a few years afterwards. I got it on Kindle and started reading it at my school when it dropped, or just after it dropped, which, like, you know, was forbidden at my school. So that was extra cool. You know, this was 2016. So I was a senior in high school. And I'm reading it and I'm just like, you know, trying to convince myself that I like it. And that was kind of my experience, because I didn't talk about it to anyone until like lunch, and then somebody else was reading it, and I don't really remember like the fallout. I remember just like not thinking about it. I was like, oh, I guess that was just whatever, a piece of paraphernalia at the edge of everything. And it wasn't until later where I got with some friends talking about it that we really were like, let's unpack this. And I haven't thought about it in years.
When talking about a piece of media that you've just consumed, it becomes like a mutual sanity check for your group, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
it wasn't the most sane group, right? This is the group of like queer theater kids at the Christian high school. So like this is an interesting a group right here to like get a sanity check from. But
it's not a sign of sanity to be well adjusted to this society.
Not that one. Lenore, what's your background with this? Because you know you were raised more in Potter than me.
I was raised in Potter, certainly. I raised myself out of it right after the Fantastic Beasts film, which I did not appreciate. The second one even less. I never saw the third. So I had soured on this IP by the time of Cursed Child rolling around. I think I'm the one person in my family who, no, my sister hadn't read it either. I think my parents did, but swiftly forgot about it. And you know, good for them, because I look at this and I'm like, it's something that's familiar to me, that I enjoyed greatly, that's been described as like bad fan fiction by a large swath of the fan base, right? It's like coming home and seeing my cat chairing a meeting of local fascists, right? Something beloved that's acting totally out of character to what you expect.
I mean, it's like
Mother, shut the door. You're embarrassing me in front of my friends.
It's like Harry Potter fan fiction, but like Harry doesn't fuck Draco even one time in this. So clearly,
Yeah, what the hell?
No, but it is funny the Malfoys kind of walk away with this play, right? Like everything that I found compelling about it was either Draco or Scorpius based, and that's
he's got a little ponytail.
He's got a little ponytail, and they razz him for it, even though that is also been cut from the new version. So this was obviously originally a play in two parts. I saw it in a marathon version where we did both of them back to back, a matinee and an evening show. And now it's just one 3-hour show. They call it behind the scenes. They call it Harry Potter Jr. because Americans couldn't handle the length or whatever. But I think what's really striking is when you go. I have not seen the shortened version, but when you go on Reddit and see everybody's responses to it, everybody is just like, I don't remember what they cut. And that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. If you're like, oh man, I really missed that. But mostly it's all the flashbacks are gone. So all the dream sequences are pretty much completely snipped out of there, which makes sense because they were only really there for fan service anyway, except for the Petunia scene, which tries to like rehabilitate that character outside of the books because, you know, J.K. Rowling thought that she didn't quite do a good enough job with that inside the books proper. But even then, it's just like, why is she here? Why are we doing this? Your son is trapped in time. Save him, Harry.
So AJ, what was your experience of watching it? Because I have heard the production on this, and it probably depends on the show, is really impressive. I mean, there's a lot of magic going on and stuff like that too.
It's very wonderful to watch, unfortunately. It is a real treat from beginning to end. When Scorpius eats the sweets at the beginning, literal steam shoots out of his ears.
Yeah,
and like,
pepper imps.
that's so cool. They cut this scene from the new version, but at the old folks' home, there's a lot of just like tables that are flying around, and I actually know the magician that invented that trick and broke one of those tables with my butt when I was on a cruise ship, which is an entirely different story. But the effect of the time travel itself is the thing that is most impressive because they do a trick with projections where it looks like the very solid set wobbles entirely.
Wow.
And it really, like, I've never been more impressed by a visual effect on the stage than I am by that. It's just a shame that it's propping up a play that is so objectively terrible.
Sure. Like every clip I've seen of this and everything always seems so impressive. So I kind of wanted to preface a little bit of what I say about it. Of like, I'm sure there's a lot of really cool stuff that goes into a full production of this. And when I see comments online, people are like, I really enjoyed that until I thought about it. Right.
And
So,
like,
you know.
say what you will about Rowling. Please say what you will, because there's a lot to say about her.
We're in America. We can say whatever we want. Our British
That's
right.
right.
Be careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there is. I do buy when she says, well, if you go to see, because, you know, people were asking, well, why isn't this a novel, you know? And she responded, well, when you go to see this, you'll see that, yeah, the stage was like the way that this story had to be told. So it sounds like, you know, the visual effects of it bear that out.
Yeah, I don't 100% buy that from her, though, because she is so desperate to make this into a movie. Like, she is rebooting the entire Potter franchise just so she can have child actors who will do it in like 20 years, because all of her old child actors from the movies are all like, hey, you're a transphobic piece of shit.
Yeah.
We're not doing Cursed Child and never fucking will.
And and now she's publicly talked shit about them on Twitter. I mean, as she does.
Right.
I mean, you know, we're recording this, like the day that we recorded this, there was just a really transphobic court ruling in British Supreme Court that she helped personally fund the lawyers of. I mean, we've talked already extensively about her whole deal. People know about it at this point, but it is just this ongoing thing. It's the court ruling so bad that I almost hesitate to say court Rowling, which came into my head. But I have to say it.
Hey, I've had JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in my head for a while now, and JoJo Rowling's Bizarre Adventure, and I can't get it out. So, like, I get it.
Well, I was waiting 2 whole episodes, right, to tee up we're playing with her initials, and I'm teeing up this like Jacob Callus Rowling joke that now seems in terribly bad taste.
Jacob Callus. I'll take it.
But yeah, I mean, it's this final installment. I think you really see it's a capstone, I think, on the whole thing, because it's what happens when you've spent at least a decade, you being Rowling, right, insulated by your immense wealth from everything except the fact that you're chronically online, right?
Right.
And you know, now like you're she wields her IP that gave her all of her wealth as, you know, against her critics as you would any other piece of property, right? And this play, and we were discussing it before, it's in conversation, it seems, with everybody who turned on her.
Yes. And it's also like the wheels that started coming out before this, as you said, Lenore, like the fucking Fantastic Beasts films, which are just a mess. I mean, how many crimes did Grindelwald get up to? Just so many crimes.
The crimes of Grindelwald.
He, I mean, she had published that whole magic in North America
Yeah.
thing where she said that there was a wizarding like Council of the United States 100 years before there was a United States. She like appropriated skinwalkers into
Oh
like
yeah.
her lore in a way that it's just like, yeah, don't fucking do that. And then she like released like a list of all the magic schools like in the world. And look, there's been a lot of flack against like the Japanese school being like basically the translation of magic here. In a way that is deeply silly, but I don't think there's enough like attention pointed at the fact that Durmstrang is in Sweden, like canonically, and I'm just like, then why are they Bulgarian and exclusively Russian? Like, where are any of the Swedes? It's like, I don't know, Victor Who's house? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, I want. She just doesn't seem to like have put any thought into this stuff, and it's very clear how much she relied on editors to sort of keep all this stuff in place. But then when she got so big, as you all were talking about with the Order of the Phoenix, right? All of a sudden the wheels start coming off the cart a little bit because no one's telling her no anymore.
And she's on Twitter answering fan questions, getting things more complicated.
But where do they poop, Jacob? Where do they poop?
You know, I'm a defender of that. I still think that's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen online was the day that she was like, wizards used to shit themselves. I'm like, okay, if that's all you'd done wrong, we would forgive you.
Yeah.
But still, it is wild. And at this point, you have Pottermore as a big thing, and there's all this extra lore on there, and it's
right.
It's the franchise curse, isn't it? You know, it's the Marvelification, it's the what have you. It's kind of the curse of the franchise. And the more it's tied to one person, the more difficult that can be, especially depending on the person. Though, of course, outsourcing it isn't always great because it's not like, Rowling's the only character involved in this. We also have work from Jack Thorne and I believe John Tiffany as well also works on
He
this.
was
Yeah,
the director of it, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a little bit confused in like early reporting on this. Like there are various sources running up to the release of the play identify some or all of those three as writers on it, but it is Jack Thorne who's the principal like writer of this thing.
And I believe from what I read, the concepts are Rowling's, and then he kind of did the execution. Am I right about that, Lenore?
Yeah. The concepts are rolling. She developed it in concert with these people. She definitely consulted and signed off on like every aspect of it. Although AJ, like you were talking to me earlier, and I tend to agree that there's a tension in the play between Rowling's initial desire, I think, to focus more on the original trio and the desire of Thorne to focus on their kids.
Yeah, well, there's a line from Delphi or Delphi. I think it's Delphi. I think they call her Delphi in the play. But where she says, "Does it something to the effect of, doesn't it suck to have people who are so focused on the past?" And it's so clear to me that it's like Jack Thorne being like, "I wish I could just cut the original trio from this fucking play."
Oh yeah,
because he also doesn't have anything interesting to do with them or anything interesting to say about them, other than, I guess, Ron and Hermione are gonna get remarried because Ron was blackout drunk the first time. What the fuck?
And it's like,
is going on?
It's not like I was having a bad time. It's like, haha, silly Ron getting blackout drunk.
This is like the opposite extreme of the Ron the Death Eater trope, right? You know, this is Ron just like incurably slapstick.
Ron the Jules, is this anything?
T-shirt is what that is.
Hell yeah, slap that on a t-shirt. I will say she knows what to do with the original trio, and it's to just redo scenes from the original. It's just to have Hagrid show up and say, "You're a wizard, Harry," again. And
right,
and
not anymore.
Not anymore, which, like, you know, that's good probably. But this thing, Lenore, do you have any more background information for it? Just frame what this thing is overall, because unlike these other two books we've discussed in the series as a whole, our listeners, there's probably a good chance you don't know the story of Cursed Child, even if you did read it, or hell, even saw it.
Well, and indeed, like it's the there is that tension that we mentioned, and there's also you can see it in the evolution, I think, of how it's talked about in the run-up to the release of the play, because it's announced in December 2013, right, that there's this new thing coming out from Playbill. According to press materials, the brand new play will explore the previously untold story of Harry's early years as an orphan and outcast. Right, skip ahead about 5 months per The Guardian. The production won't be a condensed run through the epic saga of the books, a la Puffs, but rather a focus on Harry's early years and the story of his parents who were killed by Lord Voldemort when Harry is 15 months old. So
Well,
you
that's
can
just wrong.
Yeah, no, you can see it kind of drift in the anticipated focus of the play, right? Amusingly, around that time, the Daily Mail quotes this Warner Brothers exec categorically denying that the project is to be a musical.
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, people still think Puffs is a musical, so like I get it.
Yeah, I feel like somebody at Warner Brothers had to have heard about Harry Potter musical and was like, okay, this has already been done.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing too is that, and this is a very interesting fact just about the IP of Harry Potter, is that J.K. Rowling sold off pretty much all the rights to Warner Brothers, right, including the name rights for a lot of the characters. So every time they say Harry Potter inside this play, they have to pay Warner Brothers, which is why you'll notice there's not a lot of Harry Potter said, but there are a lot of Mr. Potters. There are a lot of Harrys said, but the two combined are owned by Warner Brothers. In the same way that you can't say the houses in a specific order, because if you do, that's also owned by Warner Brothers. I think it goes Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw. If you say it in a different order than that, you are allowed to say it without having to pay Warner Brothers. So there's a character in this play who dies, and it's treated like this big major event, right? Because it was supposed to be a legacy character's kids. And turns out they didn't want to pay for the name rights to that, so they just made it some kid named Craig, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I was like, who's Craig?
Spoilers, by the way, Craig dies. Even if you read this play, who's Craig? We don't know.
Textually, yeah, like it's the way that it's framed doesn't match the gravity of the situation. That is wild.
You know, they didn't want to say Harry Potter, which it is weird, though they did pay for the rights to It's a Wonderful Life, because Jimmy Stewart all the time yelling Potter.
Oh, no, Mr. Potter. Yeah. No, listen, you just do Avada Kedavra, it takes care of everything. It's so easy. I mean, it turns out you can block it with a shield, which is bullshit. But I mean, beyond that, yeah.
Well, wizards used to shit themselves. No, okay. He does the whole thing there, black and white. Yeah,
their faces.
What this play actually is it starts with the epilogue of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It is basically at the very beginning, you have that infamous question mark scene of Harry with his son where he's like, Albus Severus Potter. Ugh. You're named after the two most brave men ever, the two men who abused me the most in life. And, if you're in Slytherin, that's awesome. And I'll be proud of you. And of course, that was a lie. At least if this play reveals, because this is the story question mark of Albus, Harry's boring son, who is going to meet his friend, his new friend, the only good character, Scorpius, who is Draco Malfoy's son. And
I don't know about but we'll talk about it.
Okay. Oh, you're into Delphi, right?
Just a little bit, maybe.
Okay, she's your type. I get it.
We have Jacob's I can fix him character. This is Lenore's she can make me worse character.
Oh, yes.
Draco is my I can fix some character in this, but that's just how it goes. But this is basically Albus and Scorpius being outcasts, being sad, and they're like, I'm gonna mess things up with time turners. Basically, Albus is, because my dad doesn't love me and he's mean to me, so I'm gonna fix a mistake my dad had made in the past, which is Cedric Diggory dying. Remember Cedric Diggory, guys? That guy that we cared a lot about. We were really worried about Cedric Diggory.
He was Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, we all loved that guy. It's definitely not like after the fact that we've all been like told to care a lot.
But Jacob, the time turners are gone. They were all smashed.
You might think that, but some guy made one.
Neville broke them with his butt.
He did, but somehow the time turners
They
return.
missed a really good opportunity for like a who's on first joke, because the dude who made the like super time turner was named Theodore Not.
Theodore Not? I
Oh,
thought there
but
were not any time turners.
but
Well,
that
there's
would
not
imply that
time
there's a
turner.
single joke that works in this play.
There's one joke I like in the play that I noted that I actually liked, which is the bit with the announcer with the French.
Oh,
Where they-
Little Bagman, yes.
Yeah, does that happen in the books, or is that that bit where he's like the French are finally getting into it? I thought that was
No.
kind of
Now that's
No,
invented. That's
it's-
invented whole cloth for the stage.
okay.
Yeah.
That's the only joke that got it like a sensible chuckle out of me.
It should be noted that the version that we read, the published version of Cursed Child, it's called a special rehearsal edition script, which
Mm.
basically means this is the script they rehearsed with before it premiered in London, right? And you can tell it reads like a first draft. There's a lot of
Sure.
things in here where scenes will just end with characters going, wow. And then we transition, presumably with an Imogen Heap song, who did the original scoring for this. And everyone just swirls their cloaks and does like choreographed dances, like two staircases come on, and then they do like staircase ballets or whatever. But there's a lot in this script that I think got better once it was put on stage. Like jokes were improved, but this is very much just a bare bones. Here's the story of this play. Here's what we are going for. And the story that we're telling is so convoluted and so timey-wimey that it makes you at every point being like, okay, so what does any character know at this point? How do they know it? And how are they going to act on what they know? Because time is constantly changing behind them.
Yes. And I'd obviously have more sympathy for the script if they hadn't, published it and sold it, know, which is where the flaw comes down. If we had a leaked script or something that we were reading, I would be less inclined to be like, this sucks. But they, of course, bound it and shipped it.
Maybe a version of the script that puts Dumbledore in a smoking jacket and a novelty sombrero.
I think that's a good idea.
This cost $30. I'd forgotten that, but I looked on the inside cover, and the hardcover version of this play is $30 US, and that's a wild thing to charge for like what is essentially a first draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because the definitive collector's edition, as it's called, came out the following year, which is like,
oh really?
Oh yeah.
Well, Albus is off to Hogwarts, and as was sort of unfortunately predicted by his shitty brother James, who seems to behave just like James Potter Sr.
Yeah, I hope you like him. You'll never see him again.
Yeah, that was the guy. He showed up, he was mean to his brother, and he was gone. Albus gets put in Slytherin, which, I guess this is Rowling and Thorne's attempt to sort of be like, okay, I know the Slytherins had a hard time, but we're actually going to sort of show that you can be a good Slytherin, because we didn't actually show any examples of that. What we don't see is like why Albus is a Slytherin particularly. I would say I don't really know what his character is besides I want my dad to be proud of me. You could arguably say okay, he has ambition and stuff in the sense of wanting to make his dad proud of him, but I don't know. There's just not a lot here. What do y'all think about Albus?
Well, it's you have that sense. The only source of that sense that he could be in Slytherin, right, is the fact that he's the son of Harry Potter. Because if you're a Harry Potter fan, if you're coming to this having read the books, you know that Harry has aspects of every house, particularly a thirst to prove himself, right? But again, if you're not coming at it from that frame of reference, it's not accessible to you.
Yeah, I feel like this play really goes out of its way to explain every single thing that's happening at like literally every single point. Like characters will just walk on stage and be like, "Hello, Harry Potter. This is how I know you, and this is why I'm here." And it's like, okay, cool. Bye, Amos Diggory, I guess. But it's like I think this play is completely incomprehensible to anyone who has not read the books. So them going out of their way to explain all of this stuff to like an average viewer, I'm just like, I don't see the point. Just really throw people into the deep end and have them try and figure it out, because the audience is supposed to gasp at him being sorted into Slytherin. I think it's in the stage directions itself, which is like a long silence. God, the stage directions in this are so fucking bad. It's a lot of a silence that could not be more silent, a silence so profound that silence itself would say, whoa, dude, too quiet. And it's like, why are we supposed to be shocked about this? We don't know anything about this kid, except that his initials spell out asp, which is a kind of snake. So of course he's in Slytherin, because J.K. Rowling has like the subtlety of a fucking hammer when it comes to naming her characters.
He has to go back in time and kill Cleopatra.
Yes. That changes history dramatically. The other character that, is sort of a new character we're introducing, the other kind of principal protagonist, unless the original three are just hijacking the show, as they do often, is Scorpius, who is Draco's son, and is rumored to also be Voldemort's son, because there's a rumor for some reason that Draco's wife couldn't get pregnant, so she went back in time and fucked Voldemort.
Draco's wife, Astoria Queens.
Yes, Astoria Queens, who maybe cucked Draco with Voldemort. Maybe it would have been more interesting if she had. I don't know.
Now, Draco, if you will just sit down in that chair over there.
I am having intercourse.
And we know Scorpius' whole deal, because right at the very beginning, he says, father-son issues. I have them.
I genuinely, I've had friends who have auditioned for this show, right? And I was like, please, can you just deliver that line to me as if you were auditioning for the show? I have heard every version possible, every delivery possible of that line, including the one that made it onto the stage. No one can make it work. It is a poorly written line. Scorpius has a couple of those. Like when they go back in time for the first time, he says, this has worked. Which sounds like it's translated from the German. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's right. It doesn't feel like, again, that's a first draft thing. There's a lot in this script that feels like it's a first draft, just like, let's just get to the fucking next line shit. Like, we'll add like how Scorpius says it worked in a fun, quirky way later. For now, it's just, this has worked.
You really see this, like, I'm reading through this and I'm thinking to myself in particular, like, Jack Thorne hates Hermione's bloodline because she gets some of the weirdest, reads here. From Act 1, Scene 2, where they're leaving the King's Cross station. Ginny, they're gonna be okay, right? Hermione, Hogwarts is a big place. Which one?
It sure is.
Well, and Ron follows up with like, yes, exactly. There are lines here where I'm noting to myself, this sounds like it was written by AI, right? Like Ron follows up with like, big, wonderful, full of food. It sounds like Hermione's wine drunk and Ron is covering for her.
That's a more interesting. She's like, Hogwarts is a big place. It's like, okay, minister, let's get you back to the office.
Hey, did you know I'm president? Sorry, I'm mister. I'm mister.
Her first line in this play is a laugh line that is not funny.
Many such cases.
I've immediately forgotten it. What is that first line?
Yeah, Ron's doing like Weasley's Wizard Wheezes stuff. Rose is like, Mom, Dad's doing that lame thing again. Hermione says, you say lame, he says glorious, I say somewhere in between.
Yeah, it's funny too, because when you think about, like, okay, again, the thing about Harry Potter, the more you zoom in, the more the entire sweater is revealed to just be a bunch of like ants screaming at each other, like clinging on for dear life, right?
And they're maroon. Ron hates maroon.
He hates maroon ants, especially if there are 5 of them. But Hermione's parents do not know that Hermione exists, right? She obliviates their memories in book 7 when they go on their camping trip, right? Yeah. She has given up everything to live in this wizarding world. That is never referenced at all in this play. And that is a really fun, like, deep thing you could mine. Like, Rose doesn't know her grandparents and never will, or their brains would implode. And I think that's an interesting avenue to go down. But
it's fascinating.
But instead we just get like, Hermione and Ron on paper, like in the books, a lot of people were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And the play's like, it really kind of doesn't. So let's try and like figure out why they make sense. And they never do.
Just a few scenes later, I mean, you've got Harry in the office because he's the head of the cops, the head of the Aurors.
Wizard
And
boys.
I've said my piece in the past that Harry should have become the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, whatever.
Yes.
You have Hermione come to him and says, talking about how there's problems. And she says, there's some interesting stuff here. There are mountain trolls riding graphorns through Hungary. There are giants with winged tattoos on their backs walking through the Greek seas. The werewolves have gone entirely underground. And I just wrote, hey, that stuff sounds interesting. Like we should, maybe look into that. Like that sounds like something that's happening.
Can we see a werewolf, please? Can you just put
Yes.
a werewolf on stage? Why no werewolf?
Underground werewolf sounds interesting, right?
Yeah,
I understand why you don't want giants riding graphons on stage or whatever the fuck.
An entire community of marginalized people has their marginalization has gotten worse. Can we look at that, please?
They've gone underground. Well, according to her one time on Twitter, that werewolfism also is the same as AIDS. So, the people with AIDS have gone underground. Harry, can we get the cops on this?
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's grim. But it's in that same scene though, you get the first sort of glance at the whole conceit, the whole central conceit of this, the whole time travel thing. And it's something that I find frustrating because initially it does, I think, correctly introduce it, where they talk about the super time turner that can go way back. And all Harry has to say about it essentially is, I guess wizardry's moved on since we were in school, which fine, right? If you're going to introduce time travel, just go, it's real, shut up, and then focus on, other aspects of the story.
Sure.
Right.
But the idea is Amos Diggory, who is the guy who says, my boy, they killed my boy, so
My
famously.
boy.
He's like, hey, you got a time turner and it's a special time turner and I want you to bring my son back to life. And Harry's like, no, actually, that would ruin all of history. And you have something that could be semi-interesting where he says, meet the once great Harry Potter, now a stone cold ministry man, right? And there could be something to that if it wanted to actually lean into that. There could be something there. He's basically saying, Harry, you're not giving me back my son. This fucking sucks. And at the same time, you have this woman introduced, Delphi.
Loves hanging around with 14-year-olds.
She loves to charm children. Yes.
She has read the script. She's read the entire Harry Potter wiki. She knows exactly what buttons to push.
Yeah.
Yes, she does. And she is there to just be like, yeah, I'm this guy's niece or something. I'm Delphi Diggory. And I'm here to say that maybe you should steal a time turner, go back in time, and mess some stuff up.
Perhaps the most obvious plot twist in the history of the theater. I think.
this is the first person the Scooby Gang meets turning out to be the villain, right? Because it's, as you said earlier, AJ, she's dropping all kinds of lines about, we don't choose who we're related to. It's tough to live with people who are stuck in the past, and within the context of the play, it's okay. She's getting this all rolling. She's got some angle here. It's immediately apparent.
Seeing it acted on stage, it is very fun that you get to see an actress who begins the play sort of very sweet and then getting to do the full villain turn.
Sure.
The person I saw do it just was having the time of her life, really, really chewing the scenery and getting to be full on Voldy evil, which is wonderful. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I feel like unless you are a kid, and there's a lot of this play that seems to be built towards kids, right? And I don't want to fault at that. Even the Trolley Witch, which, we read in the intro here, I think is really fun and silly in a way that a lot of this play is deathly serious in a way that I think ultimately hurts it. I want to see more things like the Trolley Witch. I want to see more crazy stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get in the books because there just wasn't time for it, because we had so many prophecies to get to and so many more pensive memories to relive, right?
Well, we had to have an entire thing where Ron is catching goals for some reason, and he's our king. Weasley is our king. We should remember that. Yeah. We have Albus and Scorpius not having as good a time as the Hogwarts as the gang from before. They're nerdy little guys. They're not super athletic like Harry was. They're not killing it. Albus is pretty decent at potions, but they're trying to get along. Scorpius is the type of guy where he runs into the girl he has a crush on, which is Rose, and says, "Oh, hello, Rose. What do you smell of?" Like he's the type of guy who that's his immediate reaction to seeing a girl he's attracted to. He's real for that.
Yeah, that has
But
also been removed from the new version, by the way. Rose and he are just friends because
got it.
Good.
they were accused of queer baiting in the version that we read,
Got
and
it.
they have now made it much more explicit that Scorpius and Albus are totally hots for each other.
And
It
like
seems like it.
that's yeah, that is, you're right, Jacob. That is there from the beginning. It's partway through Act 2, and you see even before the script is tightened up, they definitely have a thing for each other. Scorpius, all I ever wanted to do was go to Hogwarts and have a mate to get up to mayhem with, just like Harry Potter. And I got his son. How crazily fortunate is that? But I'm nothing like my dad. You're better. Come on.
Putting a hand on his
Squee.
leg.
Mm.
Yeah.
If only Albus weren't just like a 2x4 with googly eyes, I would feel something more. But unfortunately, you could genuinely replace him with a cardboard cutout, and you would lose nothing in this play.
And Harry feels the same way about his son, of course.
This is wild. this is the biggest choice, and it's like it's the fulcrum on which this entire play hinges, right? And turns itself, and it's so wild that like this guy that you had grown to love over the course of 7 books would turn around and be like, "Hey son, you're a piece of shit, and I wish you were never fucking born."
God.
Yes, he says he wishes he wasn't born, or basically that he sometimes wishes he wasn't his dad. He feels bad about it, but it is a thing he says. He's very clearly disappointed in Albus. And then later when Albus is acting up, he takes the Marauders map and tells McGonagall, who's the headmistress, "Okay, do not let my son hang out with his only friend."
Harry, I have an entire school to run. I can't be doing that.
And see, like, it's if you're going to go with the Harry being an asshole dad thing, like, I actually do approve of the story beat of using the Marauders map to keep tabs on your kid. It's such a betrayal, right? It's such a,
Yeah.
The irony of using something that was used to get up to mischief to now crack down on somebody. I genuinely do appreciate that sort of dark mirror.
Sure, but when you have Harry saying stuff like, "I thought for a long time I wasn't a good enough dad for you because you didn't like me. It's only now I realize that I don't need you to like me. I need you to obey me because I'm your dad and I do know better. I'm sorry, Albus. It has to be this way." And then when McGonagall doesn't want to, Harry's like, "I'll bring the full might of the Ministry
Down
down
on the
on
school.
you." It's like, holy
It's like, okay,
shit,
so
dude.
you're fine with the Ministry interfering at Hogwarts, not when Umbridge is doing it in book 5, but when you're doing it to keep tabs on your son.
And if it was like a legitimate criticism of Harry Potter, like, "Hey, here's what heroes become," okay, I might not like it, but I would maybe respect
Right.
it a little bit. But that's not what it is either, really. It doesn't really want to do that because he's just not like that
He
most
wants
of
to
the
have
time.
it both ways.
I don't know.
Right? It wants you to be like,
Right.
he is behaving badly, but ultimately he is doing it because he's coming from a place of loving his son and not knowing how to express it because he never had a father. But he had like 5 father figures, and I'm like, I don't know, Harry, do what Sirius did. Sirius was a great dad before he disappeared through the curtain and quote unquote died. I don't believe it. I think he was just teleported somewhere else because he wanted to get away from that annoying fucking kid of, Harry in book 5. It's just like, God, I can't. Bellatrix, can you just like pretend shoot me through this thing so I don't have to deal with this piece of shit? But yeah, like I don't know. I really don't buy that that the whole argument that Harry is supposed to be like a hero in this ultimately, and that Ginny is there to soften him, because first of all, it does nothing for Ginny's character, because who is Ginny in this play, and why can't she name any of their children after people in her family? And like second, like why is she even here, right? If not to be like, Harry, I'm really scared that you like might have hurt our son, and I suspect that you might have hurt
Yeah.
our son, but gosh darn it, it's because you'd had so much trauma. And I'm like, no, Ginny, take the kids and leave. Get the fuck out of there.
It's like Jenny was, possessed by Voldemort and had family die too. She's also allowed to, but no, she's not. And honestly, like Hermione and Ron don't really get very much interiority either. Like they show up a lot and you see alternate versions of them, which is kind of interesting. But like Harry is the only character that's like, I mean, that's really the only thing they're doing like something complicated with. And I suppose they're making an attempt at Draco because apparently he was a slightly better dad than he was a person and is trying, and he's sad that his wife died. But once again, we just kind of have this like, I don't know.
I love the insight that, like, Harry Potter, like, has completely ruined the Malfoys. I love when you take, like, sort of a big franchise or, like, a piece of art that a lot of people know and then just re-examine it from a different angle and see, like, the pain and torment that those characters cause in the other people in their lives, because Harry Potter is a jerk, like, for all 7 of those books, right? He's very cocky, he just acts on things. Like, in this play, they keep saying is like, listen, I never chose any of this. All of this was thrust upon me. And I was like, not really though, dude. You made a lot of choices that hurt a lot of people. And I'm not saying that Malfoy is a good person, but for him to come in and be like, Harry Potter, you have caused nothing but torment for me my entire life. And to actually have to reckon with that, like, that's the stuff in this play that actually resonates with me, when it actually interrogates the original text and, presents it as like, I don't know, maybe your heroes aren't always the things they're cracked up to be. That's the stuff that really, really resonates. And then everything else is just like, what if we did time travel like 3 times and it changed only superficial things in the world?
Yeah, like to the degree to the degree that like any of these characters are interrogated and cast in a different light that we knew from the books, like it just makes, I mean, all the ministry stuff is quite desultory and it just makes them look incompetent. I'm thinking right now of 112, where they have that like 10-minute meeting of the original trio and like people from Hogwarts, and McGonagall's like, yeah, there's been like potions ingredients stolen, including like boomslang skin, lacewing flies. And if you read book 2 yesterday, you know that those are key ingredients in Polyjuice potion. Why doesn't this arouse concern? Right? Why do they just mark it up to Peeves? They know everybody's taken the potion that lets you look like anybody else at some point. Like, why isn't this considered a massive security breach? Why aren't these controlled substances?
Well, because who could imagine that someone might take Polyjuice potion to sneak into the Ministry of Magic? It's hard for me to even conceive of that
What would
happening.
Peeves do with a Polyjuice potion? That's my big question. Like, is he disguising himself as like Moaning Myrtle? I'm sorry, Moaning Elizabeth Warren? Like, what?
Folks, we find out in this book her name is Myrtle Elizabeth Warren. Don't know what to do with that.
Bailey's come to visit, has she?
But yeah, they just kind of do Deathly Hallows again by having them sneak into the Ministry of Magic because, because Albus is like, I'm going to make up for my dad's mistakes. He brings Scorpius along and he brings Delphi along because she's,
we gotta have the trio, right? We gotta have 2 dudes and a lady.
And a lady that's like 15 years
I love that like that part of the plot revolves around them like becoming the originals. You just can't get away from that.
I just wish there was more done with it, right?
Yeah, they sneak into the Ministry of Magic. They get the time turner, and also Albus like pretends to be Ron and feels up Hermione.
Yeah, so let's have another baby, he says. As nobody comments on the Minister for Magic being manhandled by her husband at her place of work.
Right. That would be a huge scandal, at least in the Quibbler, But it is like, I don't know, like that line is actually very funny when you watch it on stage. Like that is let's have it like it's because it comes from a place of just like sheer desperation. I have no idea what to say. Let's do this, right? For a full distraction. And it works. But like if they're gonna transform into these 3 people, I would like there to be consequences for it. Like they have to like interact with other people as these people and actually face some harsh truths maybe about the original trio. Might be fun, but we can't cast them in too negative a light, despite making Harry into like the worst father you've ever seen in your life. And so because I don't think that they really want to reckon with the actions of these people. We don't want to reckon with Hermione not freeing the house elves, right? We don't want to reckon with Ron potentially feeling like a failure for having saved the world and now runs a joke shop. Or alternatively, I would have loved a scene where he's just like, what's a world worth saving if there's not jokes and laughter in it? So what I do is incredibly important. I think that could have been very moving. But I don't know. It all just feels like incredibly missed opportunities to actually delve deep into these characters and what they do instead is just fan service, right?
Right. They just do, here are the time turners and here's words,
Yeah.
and
Well,
bits and
using
that.
like
Yeah.
the words, right? The spells, right? When Harry's kid casts Incendio, when Harry and Draco are dueling back and forth, and for some reason Draco casts the grow your teeth really long curse, right? It reads like somebody's done an edit pass, like, okay, why haven't they done magic yet? Why haven't they said the words yet, right? In particular, it just does violence to like the there's the conceit early on. I think it kind of disappears by the end that Albus is not good at magic, but it's brought up like in the very scene that he casts Incendio and burns like the Hogsmeade permission slip or whatever. Like it reads as something that was like dropped in very quickly and very late.
I would have liked him to be like not good at the things Harry was good at, but good at something else, which I think it maybe is getting at.
I guess,
but
yeah.
It's the squib problem, right? You're either very special, you're either good at magic, like you're either naturally talented in this way, or you're useless, essentially. Like there's nobody working around whatever weaknesses they might have.
Right, and we are all one step away from becoming a Nazi. The other thing this play
Yes,
teaches.
because they go back in time, and the first time doesn't change a lot. They go back in time, and they're like, okay, we're going to keep Cedric Diggory from doing a very good job, and we're going to mess him up at the Dragon Challenge. And when they come back to the future, not much has changed, except Hermione and Ron aren't married, and Hermione is just an absolute dick.
Apparently the only thing keeping Hermione from being just absolutely, like, mean was Ron's penis. Like that is it's probably the most powerful penis in wizardry besides Voldemort's, obviously.
Well, and what's motivating that penis, right, is the foundation for their relationship is explicitly stated to be jealousy, right? Because Hermione goes to the Yule Ball with Krum in our timeline. In the alternate timeline, she doesn't. And like it's explicitly stated that jealousy of Ron toward Hermione is the foundation on which the relationship is built. And I'm like reading this like, really? Not their shared struggle in book 5 where there's obvious like romantic tension? Like it's just, these toxic feelings of, I should be, with this person.
Which, again, could be interesting, but if it would have to have consequences, right? It would have to be like, and that's what led to this problem. But no, like this relationship comes out of negativity and it produced only positive results.
And reckoning with that would be a better basis for renewing their vows than, I was blackout drunk.
Yeah, which comes out of fucking nowhere. And I think there's also something too of just like, I think that a lot of the reason why they got so close in book 5 was because Harry was being an absolute dick. So if they really want to fuck up the timeline, go back to year 5 and get Harry in therapy.
Yes. Go back to year 5 and Harry's with Hermione, a thing that Rowling even said she's floated in her own head or whatever, and show why that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, they do have chemistry as like Hermione's basically Harry's work wife in this.
Yes. Just be a thruple. Come on.
Why not? Because Jenny and Harry
marry everyone in high school. That's the thing you have to learn. Is like the person you marry, you'll meet in high school.
That is one thing I was going to say. Is it does seem like the whole world revolves around this high school, but then again, it does in the sense of like the magic and the fighting and the best wizards are at the high school. So I guess that's just how wizardry works. But yeah, the second time they go back, it's a little more consequential because they cast a bubblehead spell on Cedric.
No. Cedric cast the bubblehead spell to like avoid the fact that you can't breathe underwater. What they do to Cedric is they turn him balloon.
They turn him balloon.
It is Cedric inflation. He's the biggest, roundest boy.
Let me see if I can find Bagman's quote on this.
No, wait, I've got it.
Yes.
They fire an engorgement chart through the water.
Cedric bet they do.
Grow and grow again and grow some more. He looks around, entirely panicked, and the boys watch as Cedric ascends helplessly through the water. But no, what's this? Cedric Diggory is ascending out of the water and seemingly out of the competition. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have our winner, but we certainly have our loser. Cedric Diggory is turning into a balloon, and this balloon wants to fly.
And you just see like Cedric, like you cut to like Cedric like 3 years later, just sitting in his room stewing, and just the word loser, 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 and he just whispers, "I'm going to be a Nazi."
Yes, because this is enough to make Cedric Diggory not be a very good boy anymore. Which, like, Dumbledore at his funeral gives a whole very nice, he was brave and good and kind, and that's not true.
Nope.
Actually, Cedric Diggory fucking sucked. So any of you who sent J.K. Rowling a tweet or an email or wrote her on a forum, I hope you're happy and feel like a dumbass because he was actually a Nazi. Now don't you feel stupid? That's how I have to assume how this went down.
This feels targeted. Yeah, you're exactly right, Jacob. This feels targeted, I was thinking, at anybody who looks at the Death Eaters and sees that they're violent reactionary bigots, and then looks at what Rowling does with her power and influence and wealth, funding violent reactionary bigots, and calls her a violent reactionary bigot. So what does she do in this play? She introduces degrees to which you can be a Death Eater, right? There's certain people described as, oh, they're pretty extreme Death Eaters in a really nonchalant tone of voice. There's a bit early on, we passed over this, but there's a bit early on where Harry's scar is hurting again, and at the ministry meeting, he's like, okay, all of you here with dark marks, have y'all had those flare up? And first of all, why is there anybody with a dark mark in government?
Yeah, who's got their swastika flaring up, you know?
Second of all, Draco's like, are you just prejudiced against anybody with a dark mark?
Yes! Yes, I am!
Just because I have Sieg Heil tattooed on me and I wander around whistling the Horst Wessel lied and I won't shut up about Jews, you think I'm a Nazi?
Look, you burned down one Reichstag.
Yeah, it's like from that one episode in Community where he has the swastika tattooed on his chest and he goes, it's going to be a maze.
Oh, yeah, it's like the Triwizard Maze, to like commemorate the third task.
Yes, just like it. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of that time Cedric Diggory died.
Because there was 4 dudes in the Triwizard tournament, and so there's like 4, like,
so
I don't know.
Again, this is where my brain starts hurting, right? Because we go back in time and we do one time travel thing, and not, as you said, not much changes besides Rose just disappearing from existence because Ron and Hermione never get married, right? An entire person is gone.
Which, whatever, she's
gone, right? We saw her once, and she was a little bit sassy to Scorpius, and then that's kind of it, right? But
she really rose to the occasion.
When we get back to the present, everyone is still pursuing their same goals as if nothing had changed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, so you're telling me these two people don't get together and everything else just remains the same, right? That's where my mind starts really hurting. Yeah. And then we go back, and then there's obviously the huge change of we go into the darkest timeline, right? And that makes sense to me because it's a completely new set of rules. I think it should have been a completely new set of rules every time we time travel and just get really fucking weird with it, right? Harry is groundskeeper now. He's got Hagrid's old job. Or like he's like Voldemort's, like they've kept him alive, but they're just torturing him constantly. It's not that Harry Potter died, it's that now he's a puppet for the government, right? I was wrong to oppose Voldemort. Yeah.
They do the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen thing where they have Voldemort's head in a cage.
Come on! I mean, that's something, right? They celebrate, instead we get Voldemort Day. It's like, what do you do on Voldemort Day?
Which, in fairness, structurally, right, is a great way to cut it, right? Because again, like you see part 1 in the matinee, and then you got to see part 2 like that night or the next day, and to have Umbridge being like, "You're entirely ruining Voldemort's day." Fine, great way to show that you're in the bad place.
If it was all at that tone, I could kind of get behind it. I do appreciate because Scorpius appears in the alternate timeline where Voldemort won because Cedric Diggory murked Neville.
He only ever killed one person. Just the one.
He only killed one guy. He wasn't very good. And she says, okay, I will say, I said there was only one laugh line in this. This made me laugh, not for maybe intended reasons. Not so much rest in peace, Harry Potter. More rest in perpetual despair. But yeah, it's evil Hogwarts now, where everything is evil. Umbridge rules Hogwarts under Voldemort. For reasons we discussed at the last one, I don't like this. I like Umbridge better as like a petty diplomat that actually believes in like the shitty system and not as a Death Eater, but whatever. And it's this timeline where Scorpius was actually cool and a jock and got pussy. That's what's happening here. That's this timeline.
He goes to the blood ball.
Yeah, his dad is a cop, which makes everyone like him.
Yes,
of course.
That is how that works.
And yeah, in this alternate timeline, I guess they don't really oppress muggles besides just like doing mass like random killings of them, it seems like.
Right, and then they bribe, I guess, the prime minister who, as we know, all the world leaders are aware of wizards. Like, they have, like, some sort of, like, outlet to the wizarding world, as we see in book 6. But then it's also like, I would imagine that there would be more laws. I mean, I don't understand why they would still be in hiding. Do you know what I mean? As wizards at this point.
Yeah, they would just kill them all. Like, I thought that's what they wanted to do. He was on a throne. They have a throne of muggles with a wizard on it, and as a statue in like book 7 when they take over.
Magic is might.
But like, basically, everything's pretty much the same in this timeline, except like bad guys are in charge. But which also I don't love. But basically, Scorpius, which I do think this is kind of fun. He's like, I wonder if Snape is still like with it. He figures he's able to convince Snape to be with it. And then he finds out that there's like a secret resistance. And the resistance, because this is just this world, is also just hiding in like a basement near Hogwarts.
They're in the Shrieking Shack.
Got it. They're right there. They should go somewhere else. That's not a very good place for them to be hiding.
They never expect us to hide next door.
And it's Hermione, who goes by Granger now because she's cool. And Ron, and I guess they don't fuck, even though like they probably spend more time together in this timeline. I don't know.
I think it shows just how unlikely their pairing is across all the multiverse, right?
Sure.
Like that we ended up with the one timeline where they're together, but they probably shouldn't be. That's the main lesson I take away. It's not the lesson they intended, but it is like the thing I take away from it is like Ron and Hermione probably should not be married.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not, but they're going to do it again. Hermione decided to stay with him even when he showed up blackout drunk to the wedding, which is something that's always going to be part of Ron's character for me.
Forever
now.
and always. And I want to talk about Snape for just a little bit here because this is also, I think, this is effective for me as an ex-Potter fan, right? As somebody who grew up with the books, who's, when the 7th book came out, I was the exact same age that Harry was, and it felt like, a nice little casting off of childhood. Like, it was a wonderful little bookmark for me. And I was a huge, huge Potterhead. And even reading it now, there's something that really works for me about Snape, like hearing the news that Harry Potter named his kid after him and like being moved by it. Because I mean that'll always get me, of somebody who sacrifices themselves and then in like an alternate universe gets to hear about the legacy that they never had. Like that part really works for me. The problem is that they double down on it and completely ruin it a little bit later on with Snape's arc, because like right before Snape dies, spoiler again, he turns to Scorpius and says, "Please tell Albus that I'm so glad he bears my name." And I'm like, I'm sorry. Please tell Albus that I am so glad he bears my name. And
he talked too slow, so they catch him and they've all died.
And he's gone. He was really milking it. But that just like it really puts way too much frosting on top for me, right? And they get it really right in the first scene where the confrontation.
That's the same scene too, where you just said there, where Scorpius says to Snape, "Thank you for being my light in the darkness." But you're right. No, there is something to like Snape's been holding it down all this time. You could imagine an interesting world where Voldemort won and he just has to still be undercover all this time later. Yeah. That just sucks. Forever. And I do like where they say Voldemort kills you and he goes, "How annoying."
Yeah.
I'm not made of stone. That's fun.
Snape's one of the funniest characters in this script.
By far and away.
And they basically all get Dementored, though. They all get Dementored.
Yeah, Ron and Hermione get killed on stage.
Yeah, they get dropped.
Yeah, together,
And Scorpius goes back and fixes it by undoing the spells they cast in the past, resetting everything, and making everything good again. Is basically what happens here. They go back.
You'll play over.
It's done. We don't have to worry about it. Except
there's a whole other act.
Yeah, except there's a lot more happening. And I remember getting there and being like, "Oh, I guess it's over." But no, it's not over.
That happens in the Potter books a lot too, right? You think that everything's resolved and then the true villain unmasks themselves and like comes out of the woodwork, right? And okay, so this is I think a good time to talk about how plays usually don't have plots. Or at least they don't have plots this complicated, because it's when you're sitting in an audience and you're trying to absorb all this stuff, there's a lot of nouns being thrown at you. There's a lot of stuff like that. And so most plays just focus on character relationships to each other, right? And at the times when this play slows down, is able to have those character moments and actually have those character interactions, I'm actually pretty on board for it, right? It's hard because Albus doesn't have a personality and he has so many scenes in this play. But like when they just stop and actually talk to each other, it comes alive for me. And this is the part where it feels that the story is bumping up against the aesthetic sensibilities of Jack Thorne the most, because it is the most Harry Potter twist of all time, that like, oh, turns out Scorpius still has the time turner and they're going to destroy it together, but they got to give it to their good friend Delphi first. And it turns out she's Voldemort's daughter. So well, are you shocked? Are we all properly taken aback at this 20-year-old whose timeline just happens to like completely line up with when Voldemort died?
I did the math in my head, and like she was born the March before the Battle of Hogwarts. So like,
yes,
again, taking this at face value, like Voldemort's banging Bellatrix Lestrange is like celebrating Dumbledore dying, I think.
Yeah. Oh. Now I'm picturing it. Now you've made me picture it again, and I don't want to picture this.
Rule 34 artists everywhere were probably celebrating. They were like, justified the shit they were making about Bellatrix and Voldemort for years. So, somebody got something out of this. But yeah, he had a daughter. His daughter is, alt, I guess. She's got tattoos and dyed hair and stuff.
Yeah, blue hair, like denim jacket. She's got the whole grunge thing going on. Growing in a vat to be my weakness.
If this had come out a few years later, would Rowling have given her pronouns?
Oh shit!
And then even more Lenore's weakness, like a she they baddie. We'll make that canon. I'm sure someone's talked about it. But yeah, Delphi's whole thing is she's like, I want to go back to the bad timeline.
I want to meet Dad.
But yeah, and like not really in an interesting way. There was a prophecy. I don't really know where the prophecy came from.
It's just kind of scrawled on the wall of an old folks' home in Theses or something.
Yeah, it says, when spares are spared, when time is turned, when unseen children murder their fathers, then will the Dark Lord return. We won't know where that comes from, correct?
Just around.
It's just there.
And I will say, in the theater, this is a very cool effect where this is like 3+ hours in, right? And you're still waiting. You need the show to surprise you in some way. So the thing appears on the wall, but then they do the spell, and the entire theater across every wall, including the one you walk by to go to the bathroom, has light up paint that just lights up. And it has the prophecy, so you're completely surrounded by it. And I went, woo! And then there's an intermission there, so that's when they take the intermission.
Yeah,
it's really fucking
cool.
dope. Like, the thing that this play does extraordinarily well is it gives you a good cliffhanger to always keep you coming back to it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Which I mean, I'd say Potter in general tends to do that well. Harry Potter, even like the ends of chapters, can be very like, oh well, what's the next thing? Much more effectively, I'd say, of course, but it's part of the DNA of the series for sure. So when spares are spared, Cedric Diggory was called the Spare. When time is turned, that's the time turner. When unseen children murder their fathers, presumably that's Albus messing things up for everybody, then will the Dark Lord return. Right. And so she's like, you know what? I'm going to go back in time and keep Voldemort from ever killing Harry Potter.
Because that prophecy was broken, it means that all prophecies can be broken, including the big one, right? When October dies or whatever, I don't remember the exact prophecy, but to stop, yes, as you said, Voldemort from killing Harry in the first place. And
she's got to stop the big one, which is why she goes back to the Ides of March, of course, because we have to establish Caesar's dominance. Of course. The Dark Lord will return.
And we also go back to the third task, right? We've done the first two, so we have to go back into the third one. And this is actually a very effective moment, I think, when they meet, where Cedric saves them from Delphi, right? The actual Cedric Diggory comes out, and he's like, so are you a task or whatever? And they're like, yes, the task is to free us. And so he frees them. He's like, okay, so do I go and finish the maze? And then you have to see these two children be like, yeah, buddy, you gotta go finish the maze. And then you watch this child go off to die. And I'm just like, oh my God, like that really fucking gets me. Oh, we didn't mention Craig dying. I'm sorry. Craig gets got.
He was a good
He
boy.
was-
Oh, yeah,
Good boy.
AJ, so you said this was, do you know for a fact this was supposed to be one of the Potter's kids, or is that like a theory?
It is a rumor that has been circulated that I have had several sources confirm.
Gotcha. It makes a lot more sense. I'll say
Yes. And I think that, obviously in our play, in Puffs, Craig has a much larger role. He is the love interest of my character, who is a legacy character of two of the characters in Puffs. And it's actually present in the play itself when my character gets attacked by school security guards, who are, the Dementors in this play. Right before I cast my magical helper friend, my little animal that helps protect me from the school security guards. Sorry, I have to speak in vagaries because of copyright reasons. But
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. This seems like a very unique.
yeah.
thing here.
My character screams Craig twice, and then when we go into the bathroom scene, I say, when I'm describing the bathroom, I say, why do we keep coming in here, Craig? Because that was a place that my character and he would hook up when we were at school together. But so Craig means a lot to me specifically, but I can't imagine as an audience member you watching this and being like, yeah, I'm really sad that ensemble member just got fucking annihilated by
I imagine it probably looks cool.
not really. It's flashes
No?
green and he falls over. Like you said, Jacob, like
Gotcha.
Avada Kedavra is not an interesting thing to watch happen, right?
I was hoping it would be made more interesting by the play. I'm let down. I'm always hoping for new depictions of a Avada Kedavra that fix it for me.
If the person exploded, I think that would go a long way. Like it was like the exploding person spell.
There is an entrail expelling curse that we don't really take a good hard look at.
Yeah, like where's that spell? I feel like Voldemort would like that more than the peaceful insta-death of Avada Kedavra, right?
This was off mic, but our editor Ryan, he said he said after listening and editing our last two episodes, he was like, I realize now how much of Harry Potter was made up by me while I was reading it.
Right.
He was like, for example, the killing curses. He goes, I didn't realize till now I made up as a kid that you turned into looking like Voldemort if you used the killing curses because it corrupted your soul and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There is a force that does that. I mean, indirectly, it's not wrong because like the force that does that is like the Horcruxes, right? You deliberately like kill the act of killing somebody like splits your soul in half, and you have to like catch it and stick it in something.
Well,
because I mean, like,
yeah.
imagine a spell that's like you get denied heaven, right? Like it just annihilates your soul for all time, or like maybe if we're doing a time play,
the unforgivable sin is a thing in the Bible.
Imagine a notebook that you write somebody's name in and they die and they can neither go to heaven nor hell.
right? I mean, come on. I mean, look, it's a time play. Why not have a spell where you can, without using a time turner, you can just erase someone from ever having existed ever, and you see them literally ripped apart from the time stream, like it, something a little bit more evil than poof, you're dead.
Well, we have something even more evil than that, and we have Dumbledore getting one last chance to manipulate Harry.
Oh
Let's talk about the paintings. I love the paintings because they're AI. They're just fucking AI. They're a combo, like, or at least that's like what they should be, because what they are is very weird and like abstract, right? It's just like,
Right.
It's a shadow of the person.
Right, as people might remember, Harry Potter has talking paintings, which is fun until you're like, wait, what if the person was dead and you wanted to talk to them? And I think McGonagall throws out the line that like that you're less than even half the person, like you said, AJ. It should just sort of be like from Mass Effect 3 when you talk to the Commander Shepard VI and he was like, we should all unite. That's how it should be. I just did that yesterday, so that's why it's on my head. But it's not.
This is my favorite shop on the Citadel.
Yeah, maybe Dumbledore's special, but you've got him, and he's talking and he was like, I understand, your situation, Harry. I had to meet you in the end, 11 years old, and you were so brave, so good. You walked uncomplainingly along the path that had been laid at your feet. Of course I loved you, and I knew that would happen again. That's where I loved. I would cause irreparable damage. I am no fit person to love. I have never loved without causing harm. And then he says, this is what love does, a whole thing. And it's like, first of all, I mean, we did kind of already do this in the other books. Like, this is kind of the arc of the other books. But I do appreciate that, like, Dumbledore from beyond the grave is like, one more chance to fuck with this kid.
One more. That I have never loved without causing harm bit is so bleak. It is such a non-apology apology.
Yeah. I love Dumbledore when he's at his worst. I really do. But I don't know that this... But AJ, you're right. This concept of the portraits is very, like, world twisting for me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been a lot more effective. And I mean, they can't do this because it was already in the books, right? That the paintings all like have meetings with each other to like decide what to do, and they're fully conscious, and they have like, I guess, post-life lives inside of this, magic paint. And he keeps saying, I am not but paint and memory in the thing, right? And I think that's kind of a beautiful sentiment, but I think the more effective one for these characters is if what's in the painting is just a magical amalgamation of everything that character has ever said in their life. And so at a certain point, Harry is asking questions and Dumbledore is just repeating quotes from like earlier books. And Harry's like, no, but Dumbledore, talk to me. Like, talk to me. And he just can't. It's like the glitch of like, oh, this is my favorite shop on the Citadel. I think that would be so much more moving and effective of Harry being like, I am actually on my own for this. Because that's what being a parent is, right? Like, at eventually some point, no one is coming to save you. You are the adult. So you have to like make those decisions for yourself and find your own way. You can't rely on the past. And Dumbledore gives him good advice in this. And I'm like, he shouldn't. He should be gone. Harry should reckon with the fact that he was manipulated by this old man to die, that he was raised like a fucking sheep. And it doesn't matter how much you love the sheep, he still fucking killed him. Right?
What an effective parallel to the Mirror of Erised it would be, right? You can be destroyed by your desires, the deepest, most desperate desire of your heart, and also, like, searching through the past, searching through these, previous relationships for some answer that doesn't exist, right? Like, imagine Harry, like, you're absolutely right, AJ. Imagine him asking Dumbledore, what do I do? And you just get, alas, earwax.
Yeah, nitmick, nitwit, blubber, ottoman, tweak. And it's just like, shit.
Do you like my long fingers?
He's like, well, you never said that. And he's like, not to you.
Not to you. Who's been a naughty balloon boy, Grindelwald?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Snape about that. At least the way I read it.
Always.
So I will say, though, I don't think Harry really has defined his own way here, or like really kind of comes up with me a satisfying solution of like how to be a good dad. Because basically he finds out, okay, my kid is way back in time trying to save my parent, or trying to stop someone from saving Voldemort, and I got to go back and help him. And he just kind of goes back and helps him, and then that's it. Like, it doesn't, maybe I'm missing something here, but I don't feel like there is like a moment where Harry is able to have a proper catharsis with Albus, or even what the new like synthesis between the two of them looks like. I don't know. I guess he apologizes.
They would have to have like characteristics and wants and goals outside of just each other, right? Which they don't really.
There is a fine scene between Harry and Draco after they have their like knockdown, drag out fight, where Draco's like, look, maybe don't isolate your kid who's already feeling isolated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Draco's the best character. Oh, yeah.
The relationship between him and his son, right? Him and Scorpius, like, because he genuinely loves his son both in our timeline and in the bad timeline. And that's the one relationship. It's the one fulcrum on which like these things turn, right? It's the one frame of reference that people have for maybe we should be normal.
My wildest script note would be to kill Ginny.
Okay. Where at?
No, before the play starts.
Okay.
So like, or like in the first 3 years, right? When we do like the whole like, and then, they grew distant or apart, right? Ginny dies. And then you put the Astoria like timeline thing, the grieving mom thing onto Harry and Albus. because then it makes sense where he's like, sometimes I don't want to be your dad because you were your mom's kid, right? You were not James is mine. I know how to talk to James. You are an alien to me, right? And then that gives them a shared bond. And then the grave at the end doesn't have to be Cedric fucking Diggory. It can be Ginny's grave.
Yes.
I mean, if Ginny isn't going to fucking do anything in this play, I mean, might as well, and you're just going to use her as a plot device anyway, you might as well, like, have her be, she might be actually a more interesting character dead than alive, because then you could be like, your mother was a really great, like, reporter, right? And she like, because she's a sports reporter, right? She's a daily, she
played for the Holyhead Harpies, I believe, and then she was, sports reporter for the Daily Prophet.
Was she like the LeBron of their world? No, never mind.
And it's also that Harry can be like, I have lost everyone I have ever loved, and I can't lose this kid too, right? That's a play. That's at least something. But instead, you're right, Jacob. It doesn't feel like there is a moment for that, because this play is constantly asking, who is Harry Potter? Who is Harry Potter? And it never comes up with a definitive answer that is at all interesting, because Harry Potter is all of us. Right? He's who we grew up with. He is our, at least for a very specific group of people, was our first literary figure that we really put ourselves onto, right? And like the protagonist, like Link, for example, right? It's like doing a 9-hour play about Link in Legend of Zelda. It's like he is who you put onto him, not who he is in the text. Not really.
I like the part where Harry rolls around and breaks pots.
See that? Whenever he casts a spell.
Well, all I know, that's what happens in that Harry Potter video game they made not that long ago. I never played it, but
and no one ever should. I'm
not recommending it. No. But I will say too, like, I think we talked about this some, but like, Harry Potter is effective because you can be like, hey, I feel like a kid that's a little on the outside. I want to be special. I want to, like, it's what gives so much middle grade fiction and YA fiction its juice, right? Because that is a thing people feel like. It varying in quality. The worst stuff doesn't do it. The best stuff makes it work very well. And Harry now as an adult, if we want to reckon with Harry as an adult, like, can we be like, okay, now we're still this guy who's trying to figure out who we are, even if we got who we wanted? That could be interesting. Or do we have to make him a particular sort of person? Maybe. But yeah, it doesn't really want to do that. It wants to just sort of play the hits, and it literally plays the hits right to the end of having Harry transmogrify, whatever, himself into Voldemort, which again could maybe be something, but he can speak parcel tongue again. He lures his daughter in, and then they all jump her.
There's there's that bit that, like, they kind of toss off and they don't really do anything with, like, oh, like, I'm transfiguring myself into Voldemort to bait Delphi, but like, I don't want to become like the I don't want Ginny to see me as the man who possessed her. Like, I might get stuck as Voldemort. Like, that's never really...
Ginny can handle it.
Because he immediately falls apart, right? Like, he immediately starts turning back into Harry, and it's like, why was this ever a danger?
Here's another crazy idea. Have Harry become Voldemort, and then just like live, like, the stable time loop is Harry goes back in time and kills his own parents, and then the series proceeds from there.
I mean, that would suck, but it would be interesting.
Man. That would be fascinating. And again, not to just harp on the whole Ginny being dead thing, but I think that also gives like a temptation for Harry to keep the time turner.
Yeah.
And to save Ginny, or to explain to Albus why he didn't do that, right? Why he didn't go back to save Sirius, or to save Lupin and Tonks, or anybody who died. Like, why, what, because then you would have to justify why it's good that these people stayed dead, right?
Well, because part of the original conceit of the time turner, right, in book 3 is that there has to be a stable time loop, right? You can't, part of why there's so much like research and like permissions involved in getting one of these things and using it is you have to be positive that you're going to go back in time and take actions that have essentially already happened,
Right.
And that's out the window here, So, but you're absolutely right, AJ. Like, to have the time turner, like the really cool one, and not want to use it for fear that you're going to go back and be the chief agent driving something horrible, right?
Yeah. And again, having Harry Potter kill his own parents.
Could be something.
Jesus Christ, that would be like monumentally difficult. I mean, I don't know if he could do the killing curse is the problem, because I think y'all talked about that in the last episode about how you just have to do, you have to mean it, right? Or like you have to have the intention behind it, and to have to like gather that to kill your parents, like, oh man, that would
That
be a
could be
wild thing to watch.
Yeah, even if it like maybe would make it like weird trying to experience the original story going forward, at least that could be an interesting like riff on it. Like I don't know that I like it, but like you're doing something. You're going somewhere. Versus this is just kind of okay, we have literally fought to maintain the status quo and we have nothing has changed and everything is fine and all was well was a correct sentence to say at the end of the last book because all was well and it continues to be well.
Yes.
And even in they get Delphi and she doesn't even die, does she? They just like take her to Azkaban. I love that. They're like, we're not murderers. We're sending her to the torture prison forever.
It does the thing that I hate so much in fiction, right? We're not going to kill her because that's not the way, because she's a murderer, but not us. And it's like, okay, well, she's not going to not be a murderer. So what now? Right?
Yeah, right. You throw her in the jail that makes you relive the worst moments of your life for the rest of time, which feels like a fate honestly worse than death. If I were Delphi, I'd just fucking kill me, I guess.
Yeah.
I will say on stage,
Azkaban's so scary.
yeah, it's so fucking terrifying. I mean, it is truly the place of nightmares, but like on stage when Delphi like rises up for this battle, flames just shoot out from the stage and you're like, yes, we're in a theme park, baby. And it really keeps the momentum moving because there's a lot of downtime in that barn where they're all just like hanging out and chatting, and Ginny gets her one moment of talking to her kid, which is like, oh, there is a way to be nice to this 2x4 in a way that is engaging. But yeah, I don't know, man. We just get back to the present. It doesn't matter.
I do like that bit about Ginny being like, yeah, like I felt isolated and like Harry came to me and treated me like a person. And like, it, when she says, look, like your kid just wants somebody to play exploding snap with, that I appreciate.
Yeah, of course.
I would appreciate it a lot more if Rowling doesn't imply in the text, as I believe she does, that she is a reactionary because nobody will play exploding snap with her.
Why won't anyone play exploding snap with me in my giant castle moat that I live in?
Filled with black mold.
Filled with black mold. Please, the black mold is your friend. Oh, that's actually the origin of the cordyceps virus from cordyceps fungus from Last of Us. It's going to originate in J.K. Rowling's home.
Last of Us, there's also something in there about not killing because then you'll become just like the other person. Check out Worst of All Possible Worlds for that, for sure.
Hey.
You dig 2 graves or maybe like 3,000 because you just shot so many guys.
This is the first I'm hearing about this. Revenge might be bad. Wild. I do have a question for you too, though, because I've been sort of struggling with it while I was reading this. Is like, do you think that Rowling believes that people are born evil and they have to choose to be good? Or do you think that she believes that people are just one bad decision or one bad life event away from becoming evil? It's a little bit hard for me to parse because the Slytherin in the first 7 books, I think, is very clear, right? It's the bad kids go here because they are ambitious and they're going to be Nazis. Like that is just unambiguously Slytherin is the bad house. And they're trying to like fix it, I guess, retcon it a little bit with this one. But then we see that once Voldemort takes over the world, the only house is Slytherin, right? Mm-hmm. So it just sort of exacerbates that. And I wonder if y'all have any thoughts about that, about whether or not she believes that all of these people, if mankind is born evil and has to choose to be good, or if evil is a choice that good people make.
I think it's for her. To me, there's a lot in Harry Potter that, despite criticizing the idea of like, oh, we're pure blood, so we're this, you're mud blood, so you're that. There is a lot of blood determinism in Harry Potter. There is a lot of Harry is good at this because his parents were good at this. There is a lot of, that being passed down. I mean, even with Delphi or whatnot, she's ontologically evil because Voldemort was ontologically evil, right? I think for her, like with Cedric, what she's kind of doing is it's like there are people who are predisposed to be evil, there are people who are predisposed to be good, and then something can knock you off both ways. Like through great effort, you can get to the other side of the tracks. Draco is always kind of trying to get to the other side of the tracks, never really fully succeeding. Maybe he does in this book, you could say. And Cedric, I guess, just got massively derailed. And Harry is supposedly kind of walking this like middle ground or something like that, I guess, through the series. Even though he's on the good side, he very much like has this experience with being able to go over to evil. They try to make this shared kinship between him and Tom Riddle, between everything. I think that's how it is. I don't think it's everybody is evil and they have to choose good, because there are so many people in the series that just start very good and end pretty good. I think it's like, I think even as the series has gone on, she dealt with like introducing greater degrees of complexity to her characters and was trying to do that here. And it's interesting because if you read her books that have actually come out since then, she's actually like gotten worse at that. So you know,
I have not dived into those the adult novels at all because they sound terrible.
Yeah.
I initially floated the idea of doing Casual Vacancy for our first for our rolling episode.
Yeah, I know they made it into like an HBO miniseries, I guess. I think Michael Gambon's in that one.
Really?
Yeah. What I also really think is interesting about the new casting for the new Harry Potter HBO show that's going up is that the heartening thing to me is that it seems like they mostly kind of got lower tier celebrities to do it. Like that's heartening that there are enough people online, because I know that Brett Goldstein, I think, was in consideration for Hagrid for a while, and then he was like, absolutely not, are you joking? I do not support her ideology at all. And instead it's going to be Nick Frost as Hagrid, which is like, okay,
sure,
cool, thanks, man. And John Lithgow as Dumbledore, where I'm like, that is the most not online man that has perhaps ever lived. And I'd like to think that if he knew, or if somebody were to tell him, that he would be abhorred by it. But like, I don't know.
The Lord Farquaad, some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, is very in character for Dumbledore.
Yes. The Shrekification of Harry Potter is proceeding slowly but surely. I'm very excited for the theme song to be All Star for the Harry Potter show. Somebody once told me
the bit where Hagrid tells Lucius Malfoy to get out of his swamp.
I would love if Hagrid was like blasting All Star by Smash Mouth. You know, they reset it so Harry's born in like 1999.
Yeah, are they? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not gonna fucking watch it.
You're an all-star, Harry.
I'm a what? It's my Daniel Radcliffe.
What Harry is in this is, I guess we're supposed to think, a decent dad, because at the end of Cursed Child, they're standing next to Cedric Diggory's grave, a guy that, again, we all care about, I guess, even though he was one step away from murdering Neville. And they just kind of melt into each other, it says. And they say they think it's going to be a nice day, and that's the end. And I guess that's nice. I don't know, man.
It's a scene, and that's the thing. In a play where there are so few like scenes, like it's really, I find it to be nice that we're just talking, right? That there isn't a plot happening. It's just a father and son reckoning with things. I like that they don't fully come out the other side having fully forgiven each other, but they're starting to. Like it like indicates a future where they might be able to work through this at some point, or maybe not. I mean, they do imply it's a nice day, so they're 100% going to work it out or whatever. But like, I find the ambiguity here, or at least like sort of the nods toward ambiguity, so much more compelling than so much of this play, which is so didactic and so much of it is just people walking on stage and saying exactly what they want at the very top, and like how they know Harry Potter and then leaving again. That like, just to have a scene where two characters know each other, have a history with each other, and are able to like not necessarily declare that history, but like have it exist as a subtext, I find that to be a lot more thrilling than the majority of the play. But I agree with you. It's like, then what was the point of all of this? What was, if you watch a play for this long, something has to happen. There has to be a fundamental change at the core of it. And that just doesn't happen for most people. I guess Scorpius gets mildly cooler, because of his experience knowing what popularity meant in the Dark Timeline. By the way, they changed Scorpion King, which they call him in that timeline, to Scorpion Prince, because American audiences were so distracted by the fact that The Rock never showed up in the play, apparently, that they
That's good.
that they did end up changing it. But like that to me is like, oh, it's such a moderate change from the Scorpius at the beginning of it that like I don't really buy it. And now that they're like, Albus has a line where he's just like, you understand, he says to Harry, you understand Scorpius is probably going to be the most important person in my life, which is not saying that they're going to start dating or that he loves him or whatever. It's like a step just below it so they can dodge the allegations if necessary. And Harry being like, that's super cool, I approve of that, right? Is I don't know. It feels to me like the whole thing with Dumbledore, where J.K. Rowling was like, "Oh, by the way, he was gay the whole time." Like it feels like they did that, but to this play, and I don't know. Tony Kushner has a wonderful quote where he said the best piece of playwriting advice you can give to any young playwright is you kind of got to know when to get off the train and when to leave the party, because at a certain point you as a playwright have to step back and let it be the play that your director and actors and designers have made, right? And you can't constantly be fiddling with it. So Joanne, I know you're listening to this podcast.
She
I
is.
know you've binged the entire thing in one sitting as you make tea from the black mold that you're harvesting from your walls. You ghoul. And
What's it like living in Resident Evil 7?
yeah, what is it? What is it like? And my only thing that I want to say to you, I could say a lot of other things that are much crueler, but get off the fucking train.
Mm-hmm. Get off the train. And hopefully, maybe we need a trolley witch. The trolley witch keeps people on the train. We need the trolley witch to throw people off the train. I think that's the lesson we're taking away from today. Get off the train, folks. Get off the train. I had a lot of fun with this. I really appreciate you, AJ. Lenore, do you have any last thoughts on this before we wrap it up here?
There is, I mean, it's you're absolutely right, AJ. Like there has to be a change in the characters that we're following. There has to be a progression in some form, and there's not much of 1A. And there's also like, to the degree that there is such a drastic change with the timelines, this is just received information, right? We never see Cedric outside of the Triwizard Tournament. We never see his turn to evil. We never see him killing Neville Longbottom, right? We are forced to assume perhaps that he was one bad day from being evil timeline Cedric.
Oh, they Joker-fied him. I didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah.
I would have liked that if you see him in the future and he's got the scars.
Yeah. You want to know how I got these balloons?
His head is still big. He killed Neville while still being ballooned. That's sick.
I'm a champion chasing prisoners underwater. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught one. But that's the thing. Like it's you read this play expecting to be challenged, right, on the grounds of what people are, what they've become, how much of them still remains of what you know about them. Yes, Shiloh, I agree. And it's your ability to do that is problematized when you're just told to receive it, right?
Yeah.
And it's an abnegation of your commitment to your character, your ideology, right? If a Death Eater is just something you can become, like, because you're humiliated, right? If it's something you can just go down because people make fun of you, rather than the, surrender to the sovereignty of death that Rowling spends 7 years building it up to be, what does it mean? What is a Death Eater? What does it mean to be the best of us, as Dumbledore said Cedric was? You're just left to pick through this and go on, embark on the scavenger hunt of, oh, they said this spell, oh, they said that spell. They make the fucking like Flipendo video game only spell canon in this. Draco Castle and Harry during their duel. And I'm just reading this and being like, okay, who is this for? right? This is incomprehensible to me if I'm not a super fan of Harry Potter. And if I am a super fan of Harry Potter, I'm pissed that it's ignoring and contradicting so much of the established lore. It's confusing, and the only thing that I'm certain of is that Delphi is hot. We need a whole play about her.
Unbelievable.
Or she they queen.
No. This is my favorite part of it. She's named the Augury at one point, like that's the persona she adopts.
Yes.
So that's a magical creature whose quills repel ink, right? Which it's not expounded on in the text at all, but I think it's an oblique sort of indication that, okay, her efforts to rewrite history are doomed because she's named herself after a thing that you can't write with.
Right. Oh, that's very clever.
There's stuff here that, I think genuine love and genuine like fascination with what this world could be informed. And it's just a shame that there's not more development of it. There are aspects of this that I like, but again, damning with faint praise.
Well, if you want something that not just aspects of it we like the whole thing. AJ, will you tell us about your podcast and anything else that you have to plug?
Yeah, sure. So I co-host a podcast called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. We do weekly case studies in the pop culture of a dying empire. So basically the way I like to pitch it is that if you like any sort of media, we've probably done something adjacent to it. We do theater, we do movies, we do evangelical radio dramas that are the stuff of my own personal nightmares. We do video games. Basically, if you go through it, you're going to probably find something that you like, and we do that weekly. So you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, and go watch Puffs. It's on Amazon. You can rent it first, and I get a little bit of that money sometimes. Once a quarter I get a little bit of that money, so go watch that. It's a really fun time, and the best part about it is that if you enjoy this universe and don't want to give J.K. Rowling any money, none of those proceeds go to her at all. So go and watch it. It's a really fun, great time, and fingers crossed someday we'll be able to do the sequel trilogy that Matt Cox has written, because we have a parody of Cursed Child, and that is so vicious and was written within 24 hours of the script coming out, and I don't think there will ever be a better parody of this play. So
fantastic. Well, thank you, AJ. Obviously, almost a quarter of our listenership through subscribers became subscribers just after Josh's Every Young Man Battle episode with us. So
hell yeah.
Our listeners probably do know what Worst of All Possible Worlds is, but in case you don't, we want to make sure y'all go and check it out. Well, to wrap it up, I just have to say, more like Cedric Dickery. That's kind of how he was behaving.
Facts.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.